Hello and welcome back to Blue Tinted Glasses, the number one, the best Leicester City fan channel on the internet. I hope you're all doing well. This is what I've called an emergency stream. So let's go with that. It is an emergency. We could have done this a lot earlier, to be fair, but we've done it now. Anil, mate, before we get into it all, how are you?
Probably doing better than some people at the club, it seems. I'm all right. How about you, Lux?
Yeah, all good, mate. As much as well as I can be. My kind of time at the moment is tweet, post, upload, all this. Just moaning about Leicester. So, yeah, if you don't like moaning, I would probably switch off now. There you go. Right, let's get into it, Anil. The emergency stream is all about the John Percy article that he dropped. We all love a Percy bomb. Not so much today. But we do have a Percy bomb, and it is all about really PSR, the relegation fight, I suppose, top the board. So we're going to get straight into it, react to it. We're going to get all the comments up that people put in chat regarding this article. So please, if you are a Leicester fan, if you feel passionately about this, please get your comments in and we will bring it up on screen. So without further ado, Anil, let's bring it up. This is obviously the article John Percy writes for The Telegraph. So that's what we've got here. So obviously we won't read through every single bit here, but we will start with the thing that we've been discussing quite a bit on the channel recently, Anil, and that is that by Tuesday at the latest, Leicester will be informed if they have breached the PSR rules for the second time in 10 months. If Leicester are found to have exceeded the permitted loss of 83 million over a 3-year reporting period, they will join Everton and Nottingham Forest as the latest club to face punishment over PSR. So we've spoken about it a lot. I mean, we had Fox's Den last night, and we spoke about it then, but Percy's probably, some people say that he can be at times the mouthpiece for the club. Is this a way, do you think, Anil, to try and prepare Leicester fans to say this is probably going to happen?
It could well be. I mean, to be fair, when it goes on in the comment, it says that they're still confident, but I guess they're sort of like covering their asses in case it doesn't. But I mean, it's not a good look either way, is it? I mean, do you know what? That's an interesting one with John Percy. Maybe that's something we could do a bit more research in. The one thing we can say is that when John Percy reports something, that's like even better than Fabrizio Romano for Leicester, right? That means there's something in it. Doesn't always happen. You mentioned it yourself. Percy said that Matthias Sule was on his way, I think, or at least we had firm interest. It didn't happen. I remember he said one year that Robin Gosens and Odsonne Édouard were going to come into Leicester, and neither of those made out. So he doesn't always get it right. But generally speaking, there's some basis of reality from it. And as we know, the difference between him and some other journalists is that someone in the club does effectively tell them what they can and can't do. Because if you notice it, it's although we'll say there was once an article that was a bit scathing towards, I think, John Rudkin in particular. Generally speaking, it's pretty pro-Leicester. Like, even notice here how really it's trying to dress up what is an absolute car crash. It doesn't really be that critical of the ownership, which I'm sure our chat's going to be have a rather different opinion as we did yesterday. But yeah, maybe you're right that it's trying to prepare us in case it goes wrong. But, you know, why can't the club do that? That's the thing that I always wonder.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll just before we read on, there is a comment here from Ragsy. Even lads, I was not confident that the board would back Rude this window, and it's turning out this way. Looking for cheap fullbacks, may as well not bother and walk away. Well, that's a spoiler for you guys because we will get onto that. So, here we go. So obviously it goes on to say Everton and Forest were both deducted points last season, and a similar outcome for Leicester is a nightmare scenario for a club already in relegation trouble. The usual threshold. So this is very important for some people to understand because it's, unless you read quite a bit about PSR, you wouldn't know this. So I think it's quite important to bring this up. So the usual threshold for Premier League clubs is £105 million over 3 years. But Leicester's allowance is lower, 83 million, as they spent one of them seasons in the Championship. So again, just to touch on that, I believe it's £35 million loss a year you're allowed to make in the Premier League over 3 years. But in the Championship, it's £13 million rather than 35. So it would be 2 35s and a 13. That is what Leicester City are allowed to lose before they get punished. So yeah, even with a nil, the cost cutting that was gone on at the club over the last 12 months, it's likely it hasn't gotten us down below the 83 million, which is the important bit, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
There we go.
And that's obviously the worry, isn't it?
Yeah, that is the worry. That is the worry. So, so after relegation to the Championship, they raised over 90 million in the next financial year with sales of Harvey Barnes, Kieran Dewsbury Hall, and Timothy Castagna, while Chelsea paid 10 million in compensation to appoint Enzo Maresca and his coaching staff. To be clear, Dewsbury Hall's sale to Chelsea was officially announced on July the 2nd, but completed in time to be included in the 23-24 account. So again, that was another thing in nil that was discussed and debated. Would Dewsbury Hall's transfer fee have been included in the last year's accounts or this year's accounts?
The fact that that's in this article is what adds a lot of credence to it being leaked or being informed by someone on a club, because that's something that you're either guessing unless someone's told you this is the reality.
Yeah, and I would like to just confirm, I would like to just say, sorry, that what I do know is journalists have off-the-record chats with the club. They do. So not everything that they are told, they do post or report on, because it's off the record. That would be they'd lose trust there from the club. But I've been told this as well, that journalists do like to drop little hints and little teasers where they can from those off the record chats. So this could well be, just speculate, this could well be something that they have been told in an off the record chat. So again, we talked about the Swiss Ramble prediction yesterday. They have Leicester as overshooting the allowed loss by £12 million. This article also goes on to talk about how, last year we had Nick DeMarco. Obviously, DeMarco and Leicester argued that the charge for breach in PSR in 22-23 could not be applied, as they had already been relegated when the accounts were completed in June. I imagine a nil. Tell me if you agree. If we do get charged by the Premier League on Monday or Tuesday, they will be working to try and find. They probably already are trying to find a loophole in the rules again, right?
I mean, maybe that's why they're confident, because he's got another one. I mean, it's sad to say, but our best performing signing, well, he's not a player, is it? Is Nick DeMarco. He's proven. He's got us a lot of points on the board. He's even better than Jordan Ayew.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, people, we're going to come to the comments again in just a second. Just bear with. Actually, no, now's probably a good time. So let's go to some comments, and then we'll go to the next bit of the article. So Glenn Preston Anil said, I find the whole situation baffling. Surely Rude wouldn't have joined if he knew this was on the cards. Did they lie to him? This is something that I have speculated, and because off the basis that they have history of lying, or maybe not lying, but being dishonest to managers. Brendan Rodgers was adamant up until the summer that he was getting a refresh, and he didn't get anyone until Fofana was sold for 80 million. And then we got Alex Smithies and Wout Faze. That was it.
Never forget.
Absolutely. And then there were rumblings, and the way that Guillem Balaguer was talking as well at times, that maybe they weren't completely honest with Enzo. So would it surprise you that much, Anil, if it came out that Rude had been told a few porkies about the current situation of the club?
No, it definitely would. And as you say, we've got previous for it. I do think it would be a bit weird, though, just because with this specifically looks like it was Top's appointment. But look, the facts don't lie. We've done it to multiple managers in the past, and it's a fact with Leicester as well, isn't it? I mean, something that's really sad is like, not only do they not tell the fans thing, but they just do this, right? They don't want to hear it, right? There was never any real apology for us going down or any explanations. There's zero accountability. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. They're just like, oh, just tell him whatever he needs to know so he signs on the dotted line. We'll sort it out later.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Josh Sports is here. Sounds like the board have somewhat lied to a manager again. Maresca seemed to have no knowledge about the point seduction. Rude seemed to be expecting multiple sign-ins. We'll probably end up with one. We'll see about that. We'll see about that. So to go on with the article, so we have something here. So it says, in November, manager Steve Cooper was sacked in a move which cost the club millions in compensation. Owner Top made the decision but was annoyed to be forced into action as it was an unplanned expenditure, though outside the current financial year being examined. So that this will be in this year's, so the end of the season, that reporting. Now, this bit of nil, rightly or wrongly, angered me. It angered me because
only this bit. Okay.
This bit in particular.
All right.
In November, manager Steve Cooper was sacked. Top made the decision, but was annoyed to be forced into action. Top was annoyed, and Top was the one who appointed him. This really, really wound me up because we heard stories when Steve Cooper was sacked. We heard little rumblings that Top was never on board with the appointment.
Yeah.
So, if that's why he's annoyed that he was never on board with it, and now he's been forced into taking action, nil. Why has the person that said let's go with Cooper? Why is he still in a job? Because if it's the same guy we think's been making all the other mistakes over the last couple of years, why is he still here? Why?
Well, you could say that for a long time. I don't really know. The one thing I could say is that if you are going to replace your director of football, you do actually have to pick your time to do it rather than get him in. So just hear me out here. The season that we got relegated, if you'd have got rid of the director of football immediately, it would have put you in trouble because that new person isn't going to be in place to make the deals and shift people in and out of the club. So it actually set you back and that could cost you problems. And for example, I think one of the reasons why we went up straight away and say Leeds didn't is Leeds actually stalled a little bit. They took longer to get their manager in, they took longer to get their players out, and they took longer to get their players in. So by the time they had all that sorted out, we'd already mopped up Connor Cody, Harry Winks, Mad Samantha, and all these players that could make a difference. So at that point in time, maybe despite the relegation, there was something to be said for keeping Rudkin. But I mean, now it's definitely looking at a point where you could say, I mean, yeah, all the comments are saying it that we've been saying this for a while. The problem is the buck does start with Top. And at the end of the day, you got to think to yourself like this. Why is it that Leicester were such a well-run club and now something's happened and now they just keep making all the bad decisions over and over? What could that be in terms of, of course, there's a very tragic incident that happened. And the sad thing is like Top, I think we said this yesterday, we know that he does care for the club. Right. But the thing with Top is essentially a Nepo baby. So if you didn't know what that means, he's the product of nepotism. Right. So essentially, he's the owner of a multinational conglomerate worth a lot of money because his dad founded the business. Right. Now, his dad made something out of nothing. You know, I'm sure there's some bit dodgy stuff in the background there as well. I don't think he gets a billionaire without being a nice guy. But, you know, that's the mark of a man, isn't it? There's not many people until you become a billionaire, Locks, which I am sure is going to happen in the next 10 years. That's why I work so closely with Locks right now. I'm staking my claim early. But, you know, it's a tough thing to do. So, you know, Top even could be decent, but it's a fact that clearly he isn't. And he's making a lot of mistakes here. And I don't think he does trust his ownership structure. Or I also wouldn't be surprised if behind the scenes, what's quite common when things like that happen is there's a sense of a power play. Do you know what I mean? It's like, before when Vichai was in charge, I only got to look after this stuff. But now Top's in charge. I can have a word with Top and Top will put me in charge of this other stuff. Notice how Rudkin all of a sudden was put in charge of horse racing and football. Although to be fair, maybe that was Vichai that did that. So that we can keep going. But I mean, it's I don't know why these people, but I have to say that was something that was really, really weird. The fact that Top was never on board. And I don't know, that could be something that he's got to learn, that he might have had a gut feeling, but he thought, you know what, it is my gut feeling that he's the wrong guy, but I do trust John Rudkin. He's been with the family for a long time, so I'm going to go with what John says. The fact that he did overrule that decision does make you think that now he might need to change his mind. But look, come on, Top, you got to wake up. Like this structure that we've got, we're getting left behind. If we keep these, if you don't change anything, why are you expecting different results? They're clearly not fit for purpose.
I totally agree with you, mate. So I think this is a good time to just start again. And I want to stress this, right? Many times over the last few weeks, Anil, we have joked at times, sometimes maybe just a little bit believed it, that Leicester City were rumoured to be spending up to 150 million pounds this summer, this January. They were the rumours going around. I think it all started because quite a massive account on X, on Twitter, the home of truth, they said Leicester are going to spend up to
Twitter's wrong. Oh my god, that's a bigger thing in this stream than that.
Careful, we'll get banned by Elon, mate. No. So the next part of this article says Leicester are not expected to spend large sums of money in the January transfer window. Now, it's not exactly clear what that means. It is, it's not to the point. It is very vague. That could be large sums of money. You could say, I mean, for me and you, Anil, that's 500 grand, right? But for the club, who knows what that is, right? Does that mean we're only spending 10? Does that mean we can spend 50? Is he just saying it's not going to be the 150 that was rumored? I don't know, but that's one point that John Percy has said. Now, of course, John Percy does also speak about Odsonne Edouard. They are keen to end Crystal Palace forward Odsonne Edouard's loan deal prematurely, and the priority signings at this stage are cheap fullbacks. Now, Anil, what is the one position we need in this team more than any position right now?
Right back.
A right back. Why? If the priority, and no, as the level-headed guy here, mate, try and talk me down off this ledge I'm on, right? If the priority is fullbacks, but the priority is cheap fullbacks, that just sounds like we're just going to be shopping in Poundland, right? We're going to be shopping in Poundland, whether it's a loan, a free agent. Maybe we're waiting. Maybe we can't make any signings until the Edouard deal he goes back, because we only plan on signing a right back on loan. Maybe that's Am I overreacting here, Anil? This sounds disastrous.
Well, of course it does. I mean, as we said, it's like people saying in chat, it feels like another Ryan Bennett type of situation here where for whatever reason we can't do the business. But I mean, it's really depressing. This is why it's an emergency stream. It's that we need to sign some players to have any hope in staying up. All of our rivals above us have strengthened so far. And our answer is to go in at the cheaper end of the market, which is ridiculous. The thing with the loan thing as well, though, Logs, is that in some ways that's even weirder. Because the thing is Ipswich signed Ben Godfrey on loan. I know not everyone in chat's a big fan, but on loan is my point here, right? So he didn't actually have to pay a fee. And because he comes from the Italian league and not the Premier League, even if we had our 2 loan players, you are allowed to have more loan players. So that was a perfectly fair one that for whatever reason we haven't got. Another one, your favourite, Ivan Fresda, who's at Sporting, has gone to Como. But how they've acquired him is they've taken him on loan with an obligation to buy at the end of the season for 10 million. So that's 2 fullbacks. Both can play right back, by the way, that would have been available that could have an impact that we haven't gone for. So I don't know. There's something really, really fishy here that doesn't smell right. I don't think I've ever seen an article actually for any club where they've said cheap in terms of players. That's ridiculous that to see that. That is not what fans want to hear. Yeah, like I say, normally they would say they're looking for maybe free agents or players on loans. Cheap fullbacks, really unusual. I want to ask chat if they've ever seen it. I've never seen that before anywhere where like a club said that we're looking for cheap players.
and this is another reason why I think this might be Percy pre-warning the Leicester fans, because imagine this didn't come out. We were looking for cheap fullbacks. Me and you, Anil, we're expecting Leicester to maybe spend, I don't know, let's say 20 million on a right back this window. Now, we're not. We're expecting a free agent or maybe a 5 million signing, right? So if this hadn't have come out, come the end of the window, we'll be like, bloody, where is everyone? Where are the signings? Where is the money? Where's it being spent? So I think, again, this is probably Percy warning us. You ain't getting what you think or what you need. You're getting Poundland fullbacks. You're not getting Kevin Dix, even though he's relatively cheap, but still, you know what I mean? You're not getting Kevin Dix. You're not getting Kevin Dix. You're just getting Dix. Right?
I was going to say, there's only one. There's only some people getting Dix, and it's the Leicester City fans. That's what's happening here. God Almighty.
Absolutely right. This is a good point. Let's talk about this, Anil. Andrea says, what's the point unless you're budgeting for the championship? Do you think, Anil, that could be the case? That maybe the club know they're going to get a deduction. They know, okay, we're likely going to go down. So let's let's buy for the championship, or maybe if that's not the case, at least don't spend too much because we know we're going down.
Well, that's, in my opinion, what just makes the puzzle even weirder, because it's like, if, as weird as it sounds, if we know we're going to the championship, because we know we're going to get dicked again, that's enough by going down to the championship, we know that there's an active transfer embargo on us as soon as we go down there. So if anything, if we are going down, we should be making the signings now, because that way, when they put us on this performance plan or whatever, we'll still have the players in place. And for example, Jaden Philogene going to Ipswich, but if you got relegated, be an ideal player to help you get up there. So I think it's even weirder, to be honest with you. And it's like, but look, again, what we're saying is it does really feel like the board don't have a clue. They don't. The thing that's really annoying is I don't think they even understand the situation. As you said, the last time we got relegated, it's like are you an ostrich, sir? They've got their heads in the sand. I don't think they understand what's really coming down the line for them. That's bad. They need to hire someone who at least understands what the ramifications of these are so they can plan. They're running around like headless chickens, and man, it's depressing. But yeah, I don't get it, Locks. It's kind of like, I think the reason why people started believing those stories, it was kind of like, well, if we go down, we're screwed. So we kind of need to sign to make sure that we don't go down. But even if we do go down, we still need to make those signings, because when we go down, we're not going to be able to sign players anyway. Otherwise, there's like there's like a nightmare scenario that we end up lining up for game 1 of the championship or something of like 7 players and all the rest are academy graduates or something like that. Oh my God, I'm getting pretty scared there, to be honest.
Glenn says it smells like Top is preparing to sell up. Do you think that could be the case in any part of that in your mind at all?
That has been a rumor for quite a few years. I don't know if you ever heard this one. There was this rumor that he'd approached Daniel Levy to help him find a suitable buyer for the club. Which is possible, but then he's done things like he's fixed the club there, he's continued with certain activities and so on and so forth. So I've never really seen that much to it. I mean, to be fair, people have always said that if he did it, especially after his father passing away, I don't think anyone would blame him for doing it. But I don't know. To me, it doesn't feel like that. It feels more like there's some sort of weird power struggle there. Maybe to be fair with Top, he's dealing with the business side of the King Power and football. Like, to deal with one multinational business is pretty difficult. To deal with 2 is pretty tricky. And either whoever he's got doing the day job at Leicester is definitely asleep at the wheel, stroke an idiot, and I think we all know who that is, right? But equally, he's kind of taken his eye off the ball. They definitely need to get someone. I mean, look, maybe that's fair that he has to fix the balance sheet to be able to sell it. That would actually make sense. Like, if he's clearing all the debt, that it makes it a lot better. But I'll tell you what, Locks, selling a Premier League club, you'll get a lot more money than selling a championship team that's got a massive points deduction waiting for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%, mate. So moving on in the article, it says here that the bleak reality is that Leicester's issues with the rules are not going away anytime soon. Even if relegation is avoided this season, Leicester will return to the model of selling one key player every summer to assist with PSR compliance. Now, on this point, Anil, I don't think, this is probably the least surprising thing, right, in the whole article. I don't think Leicester fans even have a problem with this anymore. We're used to it, right? We lost. Let's go back. So Kante was the first one, yeah? We lost Kante, heartbreaking. We got a shit deal as well. It was like 30 million. Should have been more. He had a release clause, I want to say. We then lost Drinkwater the year after. I want to say then it was Mahrez the year after that. Maguire. Maguire, Chilwell, Fofana. So we've been through this. Kiernan Dewsbury Hall, James Maddison, Barnes, they were a part of one. It was because of the relegation. But then Dewsbury Hall last season. This isn't a surprise, Anil. Even if we stayed up, it wouldn't be a surprise if. Well, I think we're all expecting anyway. Mads Hermansen goes in the summer without a shadow of a doubt. Mads Hermansen will not be a Leicester City goalkeeper this time next year.
Nah, he's too good. Too good for the championship.
So, Michael E here, for example, Anil, says, I have a problem with it. But I let us know why, Michael. But Anil, I think this is probably the most sustainable way to comply with PSR, right? You bring in a player, you develop them, and you sell them for big money.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I can totally understand why Michael's got a problem with it, because it's like, where's the ambition? It doesn't show any ambition, right? It just feels like you're always playing ball. But the thing is unfortunately, that is how the football business works. And the reality is there's only really 1 or 2 clubs that don't ever sell. And even those clubs sometimes sell. I'm talking about even your Real Madrids, maybe Bayern Munich's and Barcelona's and stuff. Like Barcelona lost Neymar, didn't they, to PSG, for example?
Cole Palmer from Man City.
Yeah. Although that, if we're led to believe, is because he asked, because he knew that he wasn't going to get first team football and he wanted to go and they wanted to smooth their issues. But there you go. That's another example of a club that's made obviously a bit of a boo-boo there. So I do understand why we have a problem with it, but I think we're realistic about it. It's like the Dortmund stroke Ajax stroke Benfica model, right? You get your academy, you sign youth talents, you develop them and you sell them. I think in general, we're quite happy with that because we've seen players like you mentioned, Mahrez, Kante, even before that as well. Like, I guess Fofana, the way that he left was a bit disgraceful, but I mean, you can't say that he was a bad player. He was a top player, and to see him play was pretty good. So yeah, I think we're all used to doing it. But then, you know, in some ways, that's why seeing signings like Ayew and Bobby de Cordova-Reid doesn't make any sense, right? Because it's like, well, look at Ayew right now, right? So we're playing Ayew in the team, and that's in front of people that potentially could be these young prospects. That I suppose Buonanotte is not our player, but I mean, it could be Will Alves, it could be Casey McAteer. And like, if he's actually starting games, I mean, that's, I don't know, that's kind of like in contrary to the whole policy of what we're trying to do. But as we say, it just feels like it's not joint up thinking across the whole level of the club. It's just every man for himself. And here's the end results.
Well, I'm going to say one thing that is against what some people in the chat are saying, like Michael, for example, right? So Mike says it means we're going back in time to the bad old days when we were a selling club. But I actually think, if you think about it, we had most our success doing that, because the 1 year in ill, we didn't sell anybody. We weren't able to refresh, and we weren't able to refresh the squad the year after, the year following, because of PSR, and we lost money, and obviously that's led to all the PSR problems. And you know, we sold Chilwell the year after we came fifth, and then we finished fifth again, right? So, you know, I don't think it's a bad thing totally if we did go back to that model. If it means that we can then bring in cheaper, younger players to refresh the squad, I think it's probably a good thing. But anyway, we're a long way away from having to worry about our transfer strategy with regards to selling players and all of that. We've got a lot more things to worry about right now. So just going back to the article here. So another player who could have generated cash was winger Abdul Fatawu, but a serious knee injury ended his season, which leaves Hermanson as the most coveted asset. So this is a good point, Anil. This is kind of something that, again, doesn't really affect this year's PSR, but it'll be next year. You know, the club may have intended that Fatawu comes into the Premier League for, what was it, £14 million. He has a good year, and he gets sold on for 30, 40, right, next summer. But that's not going to happen now either. And that's something that you can't account for, an ACL injury. Or maybe at Leicester you can, actually. But you know what I mean?
I was going to say, it sounds pretty predictable to me. But fair enough. Yeah, I guess so. But to be honest with you, I suppose that is the flaw with the model that we go for, right? Or, you know, that's also why I was reading something before where they were talking about, you know, the season that we got relegated, that on paper, the value of the squad was worth tons, way more. But then the thing is, if you all of a sudden have a bad run of form for multiple players, that's why, for example, when we got relegated, there wasn't so much interest in some players like Wilfred Ndidi, whereas now he's probably rebuilt his reputation a little bit. So you've got to be careful with that in your model. But look, that's the thing. I mean, that's why sports has this dynamic changing effect, right? I mean, you can be on top and you can be rock bottom. And right now, unfortunately for us, it's the bad times.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, here's another thing that really winds me up, Anil, and here it is. Leicester are extremely unhappy and believe the club have been unfairly scrutinised for displaying ambition. Now, I get it. And I personally believe, Anil, that majority of Leicester fans, whether they admit it or not, feel the same way, that we feel hard done to, that we pushed and to try and break into that big six, that top six. And because it failed, we are where we are now, right? We've been absolutely obliterated financially with the rules because of it. But for me, Anil, the board should not be thinking this way. You know, if they sit around feeling sorry for themselves, it's what I said on the show the other day, yesterday on Fox's Den. they seem deluded. It seems like there's some
Yeah.
delusion. They're like, no, this isn't right. This isn't right. You are in charge of this football club. You need to make sure that this doesn't happen. And don't forget, by the way, people, Adele, this is a really important bit. This board voted for these rules. They voted for it. What?
Yeah. Now, do you know what? It's funny how you mentioned you were angry before. This was the bit that made me angry, because that's just, again, the complete lack of accountability. As you said, oh, it's not our fault. It's not our fault. It's like, guys, you've made some terrible fucking, pardon my language, decisions multiple years in a row, and you're not fessing up to it. The fact that no one's been removed from power at Leicester just sums up everything that's wrong with it. Like I say, in a normal business, if someone does that badly, they're going to carry the can. And for example, Apple, they once sacked, Steve Jobs as CEO. It did turn out to be a bad decision, but they've done it, right? Like, plenty of big companies have made big changes. Like Microsoft had Steve Ballmer, they got rid of him before they brought the new guy in. It happens. If you don't get results in these top positions, you pay the consequences. So I'm sorry, but that just sounds like, oh, woe is me. Like, you have to own up to it, right? And I think, to be fair, there are other clubs. Like, look at Newcastle. They're also complaining right now. They've literally got the most wealthy owners in the entire history of sports behind them, right? And they still had to sell 2 promising young players this season. Where are they up to 5th now, though? They're not feeling so sorry for themselves, right? Look, I do get it, right? I do think that the PSR rules are retarded, right? They need to be fixed. They're not achieving anything really, right? They're completely busted and not fit for purpose. But at the same time, I'm sorry, they can't just be saying this kind of stuff. It's just not, they've made bad decisions. That's the reality. And the worst decision, let's all be honest, is they didn't sack Brendan Rodgers when they had ample time to do it, and now they've probably realised the error of their ways.
Yeah, and it says here as well, just under that, it says many supporters, however, point to alleged mismanagement off the field, including poor recruitment and a gravy train of lucrative contracts for average players. Says it how Danny Ward is here. Yeah, Danny Ward, you could argue then, Yannick Vestergaard. Yeah. Again, it keeps coming up on my TikTok For You page, the interview with the guy who used to do recruitment for Southampton. I don't know if you've seen this clip. I think I sent it to you a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
He used to do recruitment for Southampton, and he spoke about how their owner said, I want to sign Yannick Vestergaard. Said that to the scouting team, and the guy went, no, we ain't signing him. He turns like a truck. He's slow. He's tall, but he can't win headers.
Yeah.
And they went on holiday, the recruitment team. They came back, and Vestergaard, it was on the news that he was signing for Southampton. So, and we offered this guy, we put 9 past him, by the way. I'm Bertrand, and we gave these money, and the worst part now is, mate, he's probably our best centre back. That's the most important part. So, but yeah, he is right, John Percy. Supporters do point the finger at the board. They point the finger at Whelan. They point the finger at Rodkin. They point
quite
the finger
right.
At Top. Yeah, and I know Michael is here in the chat, right? Let me get him up. So Michael, I don't know what it is. Michael used to comment on shows on other channels I did, and he does it here. He always talks about Andrew Neville, who is the head of football operations or something like that. So Michael Lee, if you're in the chat still, mate, please feel free to put in a comment letting us know about Andrew Neville and his responsibilities, because it would be really interesting to know. He is another one there on the hit list, if we call it that. So again, Anil, this is a massive point. With those players on significant deals, buyers have been scared off, and the wages to turnover ratio has remained high. We always talk, well, we need to sell before we can buy. Nobody wants to buy Danny Ward, who is sat on 40 grand a week, whatever it is, 50 grand a week. They don't want to sign Yannick Vestergaard on 50 grand a week. This is where the problem lies, isn't it? We can't sell players because of their wages.
100%. And even worse than that, like I've shown you that thing earlier in the season, where basically, if you look at our squad value, the value of our squad is the second weakest in the Premier League. Maybe it's even the weakest. But the wages that we pay is like 13th. Believe it or not, we have a bigger wage bill than Forest, would you believe? And one of those teams is second, and one of those teams is second bottom. So that just shows you.
One of them teams signed 40 players in 1 year.
Yeah. Well, but they still managed to maintain their wage bill. So my point is, they might have signed those players, but somehow they managed to do it without overpaying for dross. Yeah, as LCFC Grey Forever Fox says we can't sell dross players. Of course you can't. And that's something that they've got to look at. I think that's another big... Do you know that thing that came out earlier in the season where James Justin was complaining about Steve Cooper, but he also said how all the players loved John Rodkin? Of course they love John Rodkin. They go, hey, John, my agent says I can get 30 grand a week. And he goes, here you go, here's 40, JJ. Have a little Christmas present. Of course they love him. But that plus Seagrave, as you say, the retirement home, it's done it. Yeah.
Does Top like Rodkin because Rodkin takes most of the flack? He's like the fool guy, right? People are more and more people are starting to point the finger at Top, but the majority of people in there, they go Rodkin. It's all on Rodkin.
Yeah.
It's all on Rodkin. He's like the fool guy for all of the bad. Because let's be honest, mate, it's so easy for us, right? When a decision's made, a poor decision like signing Cooper. It's so easy for us to say, Rodkin out, this is all Rodkin, blah, blah, blah. But let's be honest, mate. Rodkin is not the sole decision maker at the football club. It is the guy above him, right?
Exactly. No, I do agree with that. I think that's something that has always confused me a little bit because I think, to be fair, Kate's always saying this in our chat as well. It's like, no one even really 100% knows exactly what the responsibilities are between everyone at the club. And so just because that's someone that we do know. But look, I will say he doesn't do himself any favors by not saying anything. In fact, that's a big issue with everyone at the club. They really, really need to yeah, I'm not surprised there with that, Wolfie. That's the thing, is he's a championship manager. Though ironically, we'll probably end up facing him next season, sadly, the way that it's going. But there you go.
Yeah. Common Boy from Bangladesh said, we might meet Forest next season, at least Carabao Cup, because we will be playing Championship where they play Champions League. Dorco says, why can't we terminate contracts if they are underperforming and costing the club money? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was you said something, Neil, but it's just written in law somewhere, isn't it? You can't just cancel a football player's contract.
No, you can. You can pay them out of it. You are allowed to do that. That's a really good point, and it's another one that I've not really understood, that you could do it. Because the thing is, as well, is what you could do is you could offer a player. So let's say someone like Dennis Pratt a few seasons ago, who we can't sell or whatever. You could say, like, okay, Dennis, you've got, according to your contract, you'll make another 8 million over these 2 years. But you tell you what, we'll give you the whole 4 million up front right now, right? But then you leave. So in theory, on paper, you're losing out 4 million. But the upside is that you'll get 4 million tax-free right now, and you can sign with another club and get a signing on fee, and you can play right away. And sometimes I think they do need to be that ruthless with it. Like, they should have done that with Danny Ward and things like that. Because I think there's a few things as well. Is that one, that also fixes the attitude as well. Like, that's the thing, as you say, if there's like a retirement home and you can just go there and you're like, oh, Danny Ward, he's got to have one of the easiest lives anyone's ever had. Barely plays any football, and gets paid all that money. I mean, if you're allowing that attitude, then in my opinion, it isn't that much of a surprise when the team starts struggling, right? You want to have a competitive, elite sports atmosphere where people are pushing each other for their places in the right way. But that's not what we have right now.
Glenn Preston said, if they'd made better financial decisions, we wouldn't be in this mess. It's like the club is being run by a bunch of teenagers. The worst thing is there's a rumor we are thinking of buying the right back who can't even get in the Southampton team right now, Kyle Walker-Peters. I don't think that would be a terrible signing in personally. I think he's an improvement on James Justin, which I think would be the main thing. Do you agree with that Kyle Walker-Peters is an improvement on JJ?
I've got mixed feelings. I mean, look, the fact that Wolfie's just laughing at us. I mean, if you're signing a player from the one team that's below you in the Premier League, are you going to stay up with a signing like that? Not sure. I would agree he's a good squad option, though. And look, if we now are looking at we might get relegated, the one thing you can say about Kyle Walker-Peters, though, is that he played the inverted role. So that is something we could do. But then the issue is now that we've got about 6 central defensive midfielders, and we don't have 2 wingers, I'm not sure when we're ever going to play the inverted. And look, it's notable that in that article, it said we're after cheap fullbacks. So I'm going to tell you, Locks, don't expect to see 2 wingers lining up for Leicester for a very long time. I think even when Fatawu comes back, it'll be either him or Mavididi, just like what Steve Cooper's system was. Or maybe if Mavididi does play, he won't play on the wing, but it will shift inside and there'll be a fullback going past him on the other side. So sadly, I think Enzo Ball's been, a thing of the past.
Yeah, FFTV joking around now. Look, he's pulling our leg. What I would say to that is, we all have our moments in the spotlight. Wolfie, you were signing John Joe Shelby while we were signing Yuri Tillemans, mate. So these things happen. These things happen. I missed. Where is it? Sorry, PSR wasn't explained for where the club is now. It's all on the board. Challenge to the Big Six. Even Wolves destroyed it. I'm on about a few years ago we challenged the Big Six. Again, Isaac says actual horror. They need to stop feeling sorry for themselves and they need to get on with the job. And let's talk about this one quickly. I mean, from one of the best run clubs under Vishai to now the laughing stock of the Premier League, and I actually believe that is what we are. We are the laughing stock of the Premier League, in my opinion.
We are, but there's the one thing that we'll always have, which is that we did still ultimately win both the Premier League and the FA Cup. But to be honest with you, I probably should be way more angry than I am right now. But do you know why I'm not? I think it's because in my heart of hearts, when that happened, I thought to myself, there's going to be something down the road because this is too good to be true. It just will never happen to any other club. Like, for example, look at Forest. They're having the season of their lifetime. And the one time they're having the season of their lifetime, Mo Salah's decided he wants the Ballon d'Or. You know what I mean? But the time that we had the season of our lifetime, we just so happened to do it when all the other teams were having an off season and we pulled it off, right? Same as Brighton. Brighton was like, oh, they're such a well-run club. They're such a well-run club. Mate, Brighton are in 10th right now and they've won the jack shit. And they're probably not going to win anything, right? So, yeah, great. You can have or what about Spurs? You can have we've made the most money selling players award. Great, but I'd rather have some trophies for it. Now, look, we got some trophies, but now we are the laughing stock. But that's football. You got to take the rough and the smooth. You got to take the banter. It's our time to enter the banter era now, unfortunately. I don't know. So I feel a bit melancholic about it, I suppose. But for sure, even though that's happened, I still think fans are totally right to say, yeah, but that doesn't excuse the fact that this club's been run appallingly and we should never have got ourselves into a position, given we got ourselves into such a fantastic position in the first place. And that I 100% agree with it.
Just quickly, I just wanted to bring this up, Michael Lee. Yes, thank you to the 242 that are watching on YouTube. But in total, there are 525 of you watching. There's about 300 of you on Twitter. If you are watching on Twitter or X, feel free to jump over to YouTube at the end and make sure to subscribe. The live chat on YouTube is much better, much more interactive. So feel free to head over there for our next one. Okay, I want to say, Anil, that is probably it. The final thing I'll bring up here is our injury record significantly worse than the clubs around us? Would like to see the numbers on that. Now, there's been something about our medical situation, Anil, for the last few years. It started under Brendan Rodgers. I'm not saying this is the sole reason, Anil, but the club decided to get rid of Dave Rennie. And that was because of a fallout, if I'm not mistaken, between Rodgers and David Rennie. I think David Rennie, correct me if I'm wrong, said something along the lines of they train in too much or something like that, or the training's too intense and it will lead to injuries. And because of the falling out, David Rennie left. And since that moment, our injury record has been disgusting. ACLs, left, right, and centre. James Justin, Ricardo Pereira, Will Alves, Sammy Braybrook, Abdul Fatawu. That's 5 ACLs in the last, 4 years? Yeah. And we've had a lot more serious injuries where, like, ruptured things, and Dennis Pratt used to suffer with them quite a bit. Indeed, he's had quite a few. Is this just another one of those failings that they let this guy, David Rennie, go, who'd been a long servant at the club with, and we all know we had a really good injury record for quite a long time. He left, and look at us now.
This one I actually disagree with, because I think if you look at our injuries compared to other teams, it's not that dramatically worse than some other teams. I think the difference is that unfortunately the injuries that we got were to key players. Like, no offense, but if Bobby de Cordova-Reid did his ACL, that's nowhere near as Abdul Fatawu doing his ACL. Mads Hermansen getting injured is nowhere near a bigger deal as Luke Thomas. Even if Victor Christensen had done it, right, that would give us some problems, but we'd have some ways out of it. So that's the issue. The other one as well is that just if you look across not just ourselves, but across European football, is there's two things that's happening. One, the number of games has gone up a lot, right? And it's less and less breaks. People are playing international friendlies in the close season. There's international competitions. FIFA introducing FIFA World Club Cup, and okay, maybe some of this stuff doesn't apply to us, but still, these international competitions do, like Europa Nations League and stuff like that. That's another one they have to do it. But the bigger thing, I think, especially with the Premier League, is the intensity of the game is absolutely ridiculous. Like, look at how much distance our team covers every game compared to when we played in 15-16. I bet you they're covering maybe 5 miles each on average more a game than they did there, because Klopp and Pep brought over a more pressing type of football. Now everyone's playing it, so it's way more intense. That's even why you're getting the sub. So the thing is I think when you play that way, you're just going to get injured more likely. And I think people are realizing that. I think it's quite telling even that Guardiola's even said, oh, my sort of style of having 17 or 18 players that I work with, I think Chelsea have got it right, where they basically have 25 players, because I think they're realizing that if you're going to have that much football, you literally, so I don't know if you've seen like in American football, it's mental. In American football, the squad numbers go up to like 99 and they use them. Or like, for example, baseball, they play something like 150 games a year, which is ridiculous. So they're changing their team the whole time. So I think things like that are happening. So look, it's a bit unfortunate. I do think that Dave Rennie was clearly onto something by knowing that they were overloaded. But I will defend, I think, Rodgers a little bit, which is that if you're trying to play this high intensity football, then it is really important you do that. Like, just for example, Newcastle was struggling at the start of the season. Now all of a sudden they're fifth. And I would say that one of the big reasons for that is they got their intensity back, and they also got some key players. So it just goes to show you that all teams are kind of like likely to look at even Man City. There was a reason why we had more possession than them for the first time ever. It's because Pep's saying, I can't get these guys to press, because if they do, we're going to have even fewer players than what we've got now. So I think that's more indicative just across football. But I do understand why obviously people are pointing the finger. I think the bigger one you keep mentioning, I've mentioned it a few times on the stream already though, is Seagrave. Because I think if we're being honest, they might look like great facilities, but I don't think that's turned out to be a good decision. I think is you can literally see that Seagrave being built to our performances falling off a cliff are quite closely correlated.
And players like Mark Albright have spoken openly in the in media and said that when we left Beaver Drive, the family feeling was kind of stripped away a little bit.
I bet.
You know, you used to have these players on, still at the time, you know, lots and lots of money driving through a housing estate and seeing the kids lined up, you know, with smiles on their faces, wanting to see their heroes. And now they drive down a country lane and go through a private gate and no one sees them. So just before we end, I wanted to bring this up, mate, and it is an opposing view to myself and you, Anil. So, but we do that on this channel. We don't. Supporters don't slag the club like you guys are doing. No Midlands club has had the joy that we've had for the last 12 years. Support the club through thick and thin. My response to that, Anil, would just be that, you know, some fans have different standards. They I suppose, expect more. Some fans are a lot more passive and they don't really, you know, they're not too bothered. They're happy with the success that we've had. And I think this is quite clear. A response to Chancellor was, where is it? I wanted to just bring this up here quickly. This isn't a dig at Chancellor. I'm just saying that Crafty Fox thinks that some supporters do or are happy for us to be a yo-yo championship club like we have been for years, instead of calling out the problems that plague the club. I think, Anil, that if there was 32,000 Chancellors in the stadium, you would have a stadium full of people that clap off a relegated team, which is fine. You're well within your right to do that. But I feel like it's important that you do have a mix of the two in a fan base.
100%. But look, I quite strongly disagree with Chancellor for this reason, which is that, like, if you have a job in life and you don't meet your expectations, you'll get fired, right? Now, I can tell you this happened to me once. I was working, you know, I work in the games industry. I was working for this company. We had the goal. The goal was the game was supposed to make 60 million in a particular quarter. It only made 52. So you got to stand in front of the guy that owns this multinational conglomerate, and he's going to be like, well, Anil, why have you missed the target by 8 million? And I said all this, and this, and I got moved on to another role, and someone else took my job. And it's like, at the end of the day, I could complain. I felt there were some things that were in my merit, but at the end of the day, that's what I was asked to do. That's what I was paid to do, and I couldn't do it, right? So you can go crying all the time. That's the reality of it. So I think what we're looking at here is there's people here. I mean, all those C-level staff at Leicester City are getting paid some absolutely stonking amounts of money, right, to do that job, and they're not performing. So people don't even mind them getting that money if they can do the job that they've been asked to do, but they haven't been able to do it. So that's the difference here, right? And those ramifications are affecting us as supporters of the club, and we're not seeing anything about it. And like I say, where's the accountability? Like, for example, right, let's say we had all of the problems that we're having this season, but let's just say, for example, Rodkin did go, right, or some other people did go. You could see some problems. There might even be a conversation, oh, maybe we shouldn't have got rid of him, right? But at least it would show some accountability, and they're trying to learn their lessons and going forwards. But right now, it's the same old culprits making the same old mistakes, and they're not learning about it. And we said it. I mean, to be fair to you, right, at the very start of the season, some people will coup it out immediately. Most people are like, look, you've got to give a new manager a chance and giving him some games and stuff like that. But there are a lot of people that were saying, look, the problem is by appointing this manager, he's going to bring in the wrong players. The players aren't going to suit the style. It's not going to work out. Then we're going to bring a new manager in. He's going to want his other players. We're going to have players that we aren't going to be able to shift. Yada, yada, yada. And you know what? You guys saw the train wreck. You saw the car crash happening in slow motion. It's happened. And here we are. Happy New Year, everyone. It's a shit show.
He has complimented you, though, Anil. I think he's calling you a young spoilt brat. So he thinks you're young. So that's good. That's good. Yeah, we don't need a civil war in the chat. I think everyone call his name. I mean, Chance's saying that we're calling his names. He just came into the chat and called us spoilt brat. So I think Chance has had a few too many drinks tonight and whatever. So Larry says plenty of non-playing issues at the club as well. A lot to question about how we are being run. And yeah, look, there will always be a section of the fan base that try to hold the club or the people at the club to account, and there will be always a section of fans that are quite, like I said, quite passive, because that's how I see them, quite passive. And as long as they get to go to the ground and watch their team every week, they're happy, right? And I think that's fair enough. To say we're not supporters, I think is a load of a tripe, because Anil, we're going to sit here. We've sat here for the last 52 minutes and moaned. Yet tomorrow, on Saturday, we're going to watch Leicester City and we're going to celebrate. We're going to be buzzing if we win, right? Even though it's a cup game, we will be buzzing if we win. So yeah. Anyway, that's it. I donated both kidneys to the club. Who did they buy? Yeah, exactly. Anil, mate, thank you. Again, there's a lot to talk about with Leicester, as always. Tomorrow as well on the channel, we will have a lineup builder. So
just quickly, there's a fair point, right? Chances brought support the club. I mean, I feel that's what we're trying to do. We want the club to do the right thing, right? And sometimes that means you got to look internally and acknowledge when there's something that's not working out. We all want the best for the club. I think I've also said this as well many times, that like if the club were more honest and they came out and they said, look, we've got financial problems, we've made some decisions in the past, and unfortunately we're going to have some big issues now that we're going to need to fix. Personally, I would get behind the club, but I think the fact that they do not treat us as fans, they treat us as numbers on a customer sheet that can be easily be replaced, right? And that's, I think, something that you should be aware of, that there's not much love that comes back the other way from the club. They've got rid of a lot of the things that made, in my opinion, Leicester City special. So that's another thing as well. So we do support the club, but that doesn't mean supporting the owners. That means supporting the club, if you ask me.
Yeah, I'd agree, mate. I think, it's what we said on Fox's Den yesterday, mate. We support Leicester City FC, not King Power FC. Just because the owner is King Power, just because we're criticizing the owner or some of the decisions that they make, it doesn't mean we're not supporting the club. The only reason we're on a YouTube channel, Anil, talking to 486 people is because we support the club and we want what's best for the club. If we didn't care, would we be here? We wouldn't.
The last time Locks and I met in person, no lie, we went to the special memorial garden for Vichai, and we sat there, paid our respects, in a nice conversation for about 5 minutes, freezing our asses off because it was a cold one up in Leicester that day. So I think, we care a lot about it. I think you even bought a novelty snow globe from the club shop that day.
I bought a coffee cup. And you're telling me I don't support the club?
Yeah.
You know, I just paid for.
You've paid for that new right back that's coming in this transfer window with that generous purchase.
I've probably paid for 5 minutes of Danny Ward's wages, mate. That's how that's how much of a supporter I am, mate. That's how much of a supporter I am. Maybe it's Rudker's burner account in the chat. Who knows? Who knows?
Well, if it is, come and have a chat to us. Be proper. Like, do you know what I mean? Maybe there's things that we don't see behind the scenes, but if you act in radio silence, it'll never work that way. I'll just say quickly, maybe we can close on this. I don't know about you, Locks, but I have worked in businesses before where they've been struggling. And you know what? One business, they were struggling, but something that I really admire about them is they actually spoke to everyone on the team and they explained the situation. 1 or 2 people left because it was stressful. And then I can say the people that stayed, they ended up turning it around and getting massive bonuses as a result. And I think that's a really good way to lead an organization, to actually be level with it and explain it and treat you as, you know, people rather than just numbers. But that's not the King Power way. I think that's just the truth.
Yeah. And what I would say as well on that is, Chancer, if you're on X and you want to come and have your say and defend the club and defend or argue against us or debate us, then please feel free to reach out. Blue Tinted LCFC on X. Come and have a chat with us. Come and have a chat on the show. If you don't want to put your camera on, even then I'll get you on without a camera. Just come and speak to us, and we'll be interested to hear your points. But yeah, Anil, let's end it there, mate. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back on the channel tomorrow, 7 p.m. for the Predict the Team for the QPR game. There is a match preview out on the channel right now. So go to the video section of Blue Tinted Glasses. There's a match preview that Luke and Anil did looking ahead to the QPR game. And of course, we will be here for Matchday Live. Just because it's a cup game doesn't mean we're not here. We're here for Matchday Live Saturday. Kickoff's 2 o'clock, right? Not 3,
yep.
2.
Yeah. Weird one, that. So I think it's going to be on terrestrial for that reason. But we look forward to it because we might actually win a game for once.
Absolutely. 1:40, we'll be here for that. So hope you all enjoy the rest of your evenings. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you and bye-bye.